Good afternoon. I'm Shannon Derejo from Creamer Media's Contract Publishing. Welcome to today's webinar on lubrication and fuel efficiency for a cleaner environment, hosted by Shell Lubricant Solutions. Today's webinar will unpack the balance between sustainability and performance, which is often a delicate one. Businesses are continually looking for improved performance from their equipment while paying due consideration to environmental conservation. The evolution of fuel and lubricants technology means that businesses now have access to products and services that are environmentally acceptable and helps with the reduction of emissions. While most businesses are aware that talking sustainability and reduced harmful emissions can no longer be just lip service, most businesses still lag in awareness and education. Today's webinar will be facilitated by Mokwena, Services Manager of the Lubricants Division at Shell Lubricants. Mpho has a clear mandate to support customers in mining and other key sectors to improve their operational efficiencies. He has over 13 years' experience in the petrochemical and energy sector and has worked with mining houses, consultants, and OEMs. He is passionate about sustainable and environmentally friendly acceptable products and solutions. Mpho will facilitate the discussion with today's panel, which consists of Thomas Michaelson-Yeates, Mining Sector Director at FuelActive, and Jamie Clare, Product Application Specialist for Services at Shell Lubricants. Before we begin, please be aware that we have enabled the Q&A function, so please post any questions into the Q&A box. You'll find this on the panel at the bottom of your screen. The panelists will answer as many of your questions as possible at the end of the discussion. To encourage interaction, we have also enabled the chat function, so you can network with the panelists and other attendees via the chat box. You'll also find this at the bottom of your screen. Please don't, however, post any questions in the chat box as we may miss them. You can post those into the Q&A instead. Be aware that we are recording this webinar and we'll be sending the recording to you when it's available. I'll hand over now to our facilitator, Mpho Mokwena, to take the proceedings forward. Over to you, Mpho.
Thank you, Shannon, and good afternoon to everybody, and good afternoon to my fellow panelists, Jamie and Thomas. Jamie in the UK, Thomas in the USA, through Shell style, represented 3 continents. And thank you, and welcome to everyone on the call. We look forward to interacting with you and taking you through some of the solutions we have in our portfolio. As per Shannon's introduction, the evolution of technologies in the various sectors that we service requires modern fuel and lubrication solutions. Shannon, I don't know if you're still sharing, if you can put our presentation up. In today's webinar, we will discuss some of the solutions that are available to address the challenges that are faced by our customers in various sectors we service. If you can move to the next slide, Shannon. Our customers face challenges from different directions. Whilst we provide solutions to help them operate optimally, we're always mindful not to sacrifice performance from the product and services that we supply. As mentioned, the evolution of technologies means our solutions needs to also be aligned to the technologies that is now available in terms of lubrication and fuels. Some of the basic requirements that we see now in the industry from a lubrication and fuel perspective, the basic requirements that are now common in the market is low ash products, quality lubricating products, biodegradable lubricating products, or environmentally acceptable lubricants, emission fluids, as well as digital oil and emission monitoring solutions. As Shell Lubricant Solutions, we are committed to assisting our customers operate efficiently and optimally, whilst also maintaining performance, reducing emissions to help them achieve their sustainability goals, maintaining profitability, which is very key in the current economic climate we find ourselves in. And the fuel cost meaning with the rising fuel cost means that the customers are consistently and constantly looking for other areas where they could record some savings. Shannon, if you can move to the next slide. In Shell Lubricant Solutions, we have solutions that support our customer operations to operate optimally and sustainably while reducing their total cost of ownership. Core to Shell Lubricant Solutions, we have a portfolio of services that addresses specific problems or specific challenges that our customers face on a daily. And this starts with the packaging of our products. So we have products that have net zero carbon footprint in terms of packaging and also the formulations thereof. Our packaging solutions means our customers can claim the carbon reduction points that results from using carbon neutral packaging and solutions. Our services solutions are designed specifically to enhance, best practice, global lubricants best practice and reduce oil and grease consumption. This also improves to the customer's bottom line by improving their profitability. Very important for all our customers is to always have their equipment available for production and operations. So through Shell Lubricant Solutions, we are able to provide solutions that improve the machine availability and reliability. We have within our portfolio also emission fluids that enable our customers to reduce, especially in the heavy duty applications that allow customers to reduce their emissions and thus their carbon footprint. And this is all part of the package offered by Shell Lubricant Solutions, not only in the South African context, but as I mentioned before, we are part of a global community. So all solutions are tested in global platforms. I will ask Jamie now to elaborate on one of our very new digital oil condition monitoring solutions that is now being made available to customers in mining sector that helps customers reliably and through real-time data monitor the condition of their oil in application. Move to the next slide, Shannon.
Okay, thanks guys. Yeah, so my name's Jamie, based in London in the UK, and I work as part of a global team. My current role is I'm a product application specialist for services. So to give you a quick recap, the way kind of Shell are working at the moment is we're kind of moving away from just being an oil supplier. We want to work more closely with our global and key account customers to look at not just selling you an oil, but also selling you a service. And essentially the whole thing is underpinned by sustainability. And a key lever for this is essentially trying to work with customers to move away from what we call historical or normal OEM limits for oil drain intervals. And yet the whole digital solution space is moving very quickly. This is only an area I've been involved in the last couple of years. Before that, we were more focused purely just on the lubricant. So as Mpho briefly discussed there, we've been working closely with engine manufacturers as an example to see how we can drive down viscosity limits to really push our products to the next generation. We all know that rising fuel costs are causing our customers real problems. So essentially what we've done now is we've kind of got the lubrication nearly as close as we can to the limit in terms of increased fuel economy, but also underpinning that by giving customers still the same level of work protection, which is quite difficult. So now we've heavily focused our attention on the lubricant. What we're now working with customers is around the whole service space. So what else can we offer on top of a lubrication package? And the idea being that we offer a lubricant and then we offer a service to go with that lubricant. So Shell Remote Sense is something I've been working on for the last couple of years. It's only been a commercially available product probably this year and slightly into the back end of last year. We've got customers all over the globe working with Shell Remote Sense. Essentially, what is it? It's a real-time oil condition monitoring system. To give you a very basic overview of what we do is we essentially fit sensors into really a whole raft of equipment, but essentially we've focused our main application on the power sector and mining. So stationary gas engines was kind of our first target customer base, and now we're moving very quickly into mining. We're also working in the industrial space, essentially anything where we can sell oils. We're also looking to work with Shell Remote Sense, but our current customer base is essentially power and mining. We're also moving into manufacturing, construction, wind, essentially anywhere where customers want to monitor oils more closely, we can offer this service. So essentially how it works is for Shell Remote Sense to offer customers value, we need three inputs. We need the raw sensor data, which is essentially off-the-shelf technology. So the sensor that we're working with currently, we work with a few different sensor manufacturers. The current sensor that we're working with is not the Ferrari of the sensor world, but it's a good, robust sensor because also we also are fully aware we have to be cost competitive. So we've partnered with a good sensor manufacturer. Once we've got that sensor connected up, we then need to underline that with some engine data, which can be anything from, if you think about a stationary gas engine, temperatures, pressures, speeds, loads, maintenance schedules. Essentially, the sensors are a little bit like a child. The more information we give it, the more powerful it can become. So we need, like I say, three inputs. So we've got the raw sensor data. We can get what we call the contextual data from our customers, whether that's through manual downloads, emails, Excel spreadsheets, it doesn't really matter. And then the third input is we would need some kind of a basic oil sampling analysis. So Shell has a global laboratory system called Lube Analyst. That's our preferred system to use. And essentially what we do for the first part of the venture, we overlay the sensor data with some basic Lube Analyst data or oil analysis data. So essentially what we're doing is we're monitoring the oil real time 24/7, which we know our customers want. We know that customers want to move away from monthly or weekly or however often they sample. They know that during that lag between the sample being taken and the results coming back, things can change. We also know that the samples are only as good as the people or where they were taken. If you take a sample in the wrong place or at the wrong time, it can actually give you inaccurate results. So we know that sampling is good, but we know that it has its flaws. So ideally, what we're moving towards is a fully automated 24/7 monitoring system as well, because we've also got a wealth of lubrication knowledge spanning 50 odd years. We've also got a huge amount of data, both stored and current, that we can use to train the models for the sensor. So essentially the model is the sensor is an IoT, or the venture is an IoT platform. It's very digital, it's very agile. And like I say, once we've got these three inputs, essentially then we can start showing the customers things like we have a nice feature called ROL, which is our remaining oil life. So essentially, as I said to you at the start, instead of working to very rigid, structured OEM or customer ordering intervals, where we know a lot of our customers are essentially dumping good oil, we know that OEM recommendations are fairly conservative. We know that oil companies, just like Shell, also have fairly conservative oil drain intervals, but we know that customers are really being driven by cost. We also know that the whole sustainability piece is key to a lot of our customers. We know that it costs money to stop machines. We know it costs money to change oils. We know it costs money to replace filters. We know it costs money to dump the used oil. So actually having a real efficient drive around that whole function can really help our customers. And Shell Remote Sense really underpins a lot of those areas where we're looking to grow into. So once we've got assets connected up, we then move you into what we call a predict mode, where essentially we're monitoring your oil 24/7. We can give you insights, alerts, alarms. The sensor can pick up things like wear metals, fuel dilution, coolant leaks, essentially any contamination that the oil sees. And essentially, in a very basic form, I won't go into too much details, but essentially the way the sensors work is that it almost takes a DNA profile of the fresh oil. So the sensor itself knows what the fresh oil should look like. And once the oil starts to degrade over time, which it will through oxidation and normal operating conditions, that DNA of the oil will change. So the frequency that the sensor is picking up can see small changes in that oil. So as an example, in an engine, as the oil starts to degrade through oxidation, we can very quickly see when the oil is starting to degrade. As well, for engines or mining applications, we can start to see when the oil is under attack from contaminants such as soot, sodium, debris from the mine, wear metals. If there's issues from a mechanical point of view, so if a bearing starts to wear, we can pick up wear metals. If in an engine there's an issue where there's an injector leaking, or we know that there's fuel leaking into the oil, we can pick up fuel dilution very quickly. And the same for water. If there's a cylinder liner leak or there's a coolant leak going into the engine, again, we can very quickly detect those changes. And the other nice thing about the feature, where it compares very differently to regular oil samples. An oil sample really is only a snapshot of that one given time. So as an example, if you have a large slug of water in an engine, it won't be there all of the time. It can move around, it can burn off. So the sample, as I said earlier on, is only really as good as either the people who are taking it, the place that the sample's taken from, the conditions at one time, and also the other thing we know that a lot of our customers struggle with is to actually interpret the results from oil analysis. It's not always a straightforward look-see. So again, the sensor offers that level of protection. The other nice thing about the sensor is that it really underpins what our customers are looking to do is in terms of really extending oil drain intervals. So as I said earlier, we know that the OEM manufacturers and oil companies have very rigid, conservative oil drain intervals based on historical data and the way customers perform. We know that a lot of our customers drive and run their operations very differently. We know that some, even in a similar sector like mining, we know that we have some mining customers who run their operations very light. They don't stretch their oils, they don't run the machines heavily, and their oil drain intervals will normally be fine. They'll never see any issues. On the other hand, we know we have other mining customers who run their operations very heavily. So we know that the engines are always fully loaded. We know that the operation is always 24/7. We know that those equipments and engines and assets are under heavy loads, heavy pressures, speeds, temperatures. We know that those oil drain intervals will be totally different. But unfortunately, the way the market is set today, or the way these customers run their operations today, is everybody's working to the same oil drain interval. So whether you run your operation hard or easy, you're going to be working to the same oil drain intervals. And we know, because we've tested this thing rigorously, that probably some in the region of 80% of our customers are essentially draining engine oils too early. And again, a little bit like the fuel economy work we've done, where we've managed to really drive down the viscosity of engine oils, but also maintain the wear protection, we also have to do the same with the oil drain intervals. So there's no point moving customers from a 1,000-hour oil drain interval, as an example, to a 2,000 if at 1,900 hours we start blowing up equipment. So the whole thing is very much robust and underpinned. But essentially, that's what it is that we're trying to achieve. We're trying to extend oil drain intervals. And like I say, the whole thing then is underpinned by the sustainability piece, because we know that we can seriously reduce carbon footprint, we can save our customers money, we can reduce maintenance costs, we can keep assets running longer. Another nice feature of the platform is for some customers, and mining is probably a good example. If a mining customer has 100 dump trucks or 100 pieces of equipment, he doesn't need to do an individual check of each one. He can log into the venture, and we have like a front screen where essentially anything that needs immediate action will be highlighted in red. So out of his 100 assets, as an example, if 2 of them were showing issues where there was wear metals or a fuel dilution issue, those two assets or those 2 vehicles would be the first thing that our customer sees, and then he can drill down and have a look. So it almost gives customers a really very quick look-see into their operation. The other nice feature we know, and probably we didn't set out to do this, but we know that COVID turned the world upside down. We know that customers pre and post COVID are struggling to get people on site. We know that maintenance costs have gone through the roof. We know that labour costs have gone through the roof, and we also know that moving people from A to B is becoming quite expensive. So another nice feature of the Shell Remote Sense platform is, if, for an example, we have an engine oil that is on a 1,000-hour oil drain, and we know that that oil drain interval is due on Friday, if our customers are connected up to Shell Remote Sense, and we can say, hey guys, actually that oil's good for another week, or we know that that oil will last the weekend, you don't need to schedule any maintenance or any checks till the following week. So it gives customers some real flexibility around how they run their operations. So as I said, the whole thing really is underpinned around saving our customers money, essentially just by keeping the equipment longer. And then if we can work together with our customers to extend these order intervals, we can really start to drive it to the next level. And like I say, it's only a fairly new product. It's only been commercial for the best part of 12 months. We've got something in the region of about 1,000 customers connected up globally, mainly in the power and mining sector. We've got a lot of customers in North America. We're doing some work in South Africa. I'll be visiting, hopefully, South Africa in a couple of weeks to do some work with the guys, which will be really nice. So yeah, a fairly new venture, but we're looking to drive this to the next level. As I've said, it's a fairly agile platform, so we're not finished yet. We want to take this to the next level in terms of the amount of information we can give. In its current format, we're kind of looking at the basic oil condition parameters. I'm not quite sure, Mpho, what's on the next screen. Okay, yeah, so if you just flip back, sorry, we've just got the one screen. Yeah, the whole thing, currently we're looking at kind of mimicking what we see in the lab in terms of viscosity, tan, TBN, wear metals, but we're also looking to drive this forward. So like I say, the work that we're doing in wear metals at the moment gives our customers some kind of information. What we want to do now is take that to the next level to say, okay, rather than telling our customers that we have an issue with wear metals, is there a way that we can really drive that to the next level, where we say to our customers, not only do you have an issue with wear metals, but we know that it's a yellow metal issue, or we know that it's a lead issue or a copper issue, as an example. So then our customers can say, okay, if they know it's a lead, an increase in lead or an increase in copper, they'll probably be able to pinpoint where the mechanical issue is in their asset. So a really nice, agile, digital platform that we've been working on for the last couple of years. And I think that was probably a very quick run through, Mpho, of kind of where we are today. I'm not sure if I missed anything, or I think that gives us a good basic understanding of the venture.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. I think that covers what the core function of the solution is. As you mentioned, the solution is available globally, and also in South Africa. We're doing some work with a couple of our mining customers. It's really groundbreaking in a sense that, as you say, we not only work together with our customers to monitor remotely the condition of the oil, but it gives them an opportunity to save in terms of oil consumption, while also monitoring the savings in terms of their carbon footprint. So yeah, this is, and it also, as you said, it goes, we work hand in hand, walk and work hand in hand with the customer. So we try and as much as possible to understand what their pain points are, and Shell Remote Sense, once installed, seeks to address those particular pain points. So thanks, Jamie. Thanks for that. I think we'll move to the next slide, which speaks to pretty much the same concept, but with emissions management. Also a solution that's we're working hand in hand with one of our partners, Oren, to provide emissions management solutions. This is also very data-driven, in the sense that sensors are installed in the customer's operation to check what their daily emissions are, and we help them manage their emissions and carbon footprint, and also help achieve their sustainability objectives. It's been tested, as I said, through various customers globally, and it's something that we're also bringing into the South African market. As I said, this is in collaboration with Oren and IBM, a partnership that was established a couple of years ago. And this is also addresses the need for customers and operations to go digital in terms of managing most of their operations. So we're moving into that space as well, to try and minimize as much as possible human interventions when it comes to emissions control. Shannon, you can move to the next slide. As I said in the beginning, we're going to unpack some of the solutions. So far, we've unpacked two of our digital monitoring solutions in terms of emissions and oil condition monitoring. But all this works in support of what our core service is, which is the provision of lubricants. The latest technology now in the market in terms of lubrication is our Remula brand, which is now has a CK4 specification. And it also carbon neutral in terms of packaging and also formulation and raw materials. The testing of this product it's been in our portfolio for quite a while now, and it has been tested to reduce oxidation and oil consumption by about 39%. In collaboration with our OEM partners, Volvo and CAT, we were able to do these tests, the oxidation and consumption test. Shell Remula is also available within our portfolio. You can move to the next slide, Shannon. Again, as we mentioned right in the beginning, our solutions are underpinned by the need to reduce our carbon footprint and be sustainable in our operations. We all know oil, if it's not managed properly, 50% of it ends up in the environment, either through water streams or through or into the soil. And this is why now we're introducing an environmentally acceptable range of lubricants, which is completely biodegradable, Shell Natural. Essentially, all products that are in our portfolio, be it engine oil, transmission, or hydraulics, we have a biodegradable equivalence of this, and this helps our customers to alleviate the pressure of wanting to deliver more, whilst also contributing to a more sustainable and optimal operation. our products in the natural range, as I said, completely biodegradable, and are less flammable and less harmful to plants, animals, or water streams, where they might end up if not managed properly. Shannon, if you move to the next slide. Another product that's within our portfolio, I've also mentioned in the beginning, is our Emission Fluid. As you may know, most of the new technology diesel engines, come fitted with the SCR, which seeks to reduce their emissions. How AdBlue works is that it's injected directly onto the emission system of an engine, and it converts those harmful emissions into, harmless water vapor. AdBlue has been, introduced through, since the introduction of Euro 5 and Euro 6 engines in the market. So we also help our customers through this product to reduce their carbon, their nitrogen and carbon emissions. Next slide, Shannon. I will now hand over to Thomas, who is also, our partner in terms of fuel management systems, to take us through FuelActive, what it's about and how it helps our customers also operate efficiently and sustainably. Thomas, over to you.
Firstly, thank you for handing over, and thank you to Shell for inviting FuelActive as a guest speaker on this webinar. If you flick to the next slide, so I'll for the next kind of 10 minutes or so, I'll just talk through kind of FuelActive as a product and where we see FuelActive fit in as a kind of transitional technology within the mining industry. But if we start kind of from a macro perspective, kind of probably every mid to large scale mine at the moment has already set out their kind of their net zero decarbonisation strategy, and how they're going to achieve that. And I knowing Shell, I understand obviously Shell are a big part of a lot of those mining strategies, from moving into hydrogen and looking at other different technologies. And it's interesting. It's important to understand that though these technologies at the moment are being piloted, tested, and they'll be available to be rolled out commercially before the kind of the net zero goal of 2050, they're still in development. So what we've got to do, if we move on to the next slide, it's still important to look at where we are to date with the diesel, with the fuel and energy situation in mining. And it's important to understand that today, as we speak, pretty much every mine globally's main energy source will be diesel. And there's an example here that I've taken from an iron ore mine in the Pilbara region of Australia. And it would be pretty similar to any mine in South Africa if you looked at Sishen or Mokwena or any other mine, that if you look at what is the main energy source on a mine, it is diesel, and it's predominantly in the mobile assets, such as kind of the loading and hauling phase. And as we speak at the moment, according to McKinsey study, we've got roughly about just over 50,000 90-ton diesel haul trucks around the world operating in mining and other industries. And so when we look at what we need to achieve as an industry in mining to get all those trucks over from diesel into completely net zero technologies such as hydrogen, we understand the task that we've got on our hands. But we also understand that actually that's not going to happen overnight. So if you take Australia as a pure example, again, in the Pilbara region, Australia, the diesel that's burned annually is the equivalent of 600 million trees. So if we leave that for 20, 25 years as we move to hydrogen and don't look at other technologies, such as the technologies that we've been discussing today, to how we reduce that, then obviously we're still seeing a massive effect on the environment. And if we just flip to the next slide. So for me, just to understand how we look at decarbonisation, we've got to look at it in two ways. One is obviously what all mines are doing at the moment is looking long term of how do we accelerate these technologies that bring us to net zero, such as hydrogen, solar, etc. But also short term, how do we look at different technologies, be it mechanical, chemical, digital, to help us reduce the impact of burning diesel? If we flick to the next slide. And I'm sure there'll be arguments from people that would add other buckets to this, but I kind of put them into kind of three main buckets. The first one being different fuel sources that are available today, and that was discussed earlier on the webinar of what is there. There's biodiesel, and there's many other available today that I know Shell are selling to different companies in countries around the world at the moment, and what the benefits that they have above just diesel, be it biodiesel, any of them. Then you've got kind of how can you make operational changes on the mine? That might be a digital solution such as driver behavior, remote sense, to trolley systems on a mine, and anything you can change to actually change the process on a mine. And then the last one is how can you look at the quality? How can you make sure the quality of fuel that's going into the engine is at the highest spec, and therefore meaning that you actually have to burn the least amount of it to deliver exactly the same output. And from a FuelActive perspective, that third bucket is where we sit. And if you just flick to the next slide. So just to zoom in here from a technical, if you look in the top left picture, what you're looking at is a new injector. And then on the top right, you're looking at it basically as a worn injector, but not an injector that you would probably replace on a mine, because otherwise you'd be replacing injectors every 1,000 hours, and that's not financially viable on a mine, because your equipment would be down all the time. However, because of the contaminants from water and from dust and other things that get onto a mine, what you're seeing is that's happening too quickly. And when you're getting an injector that's having small levels of contamination in it, what you see is actually it doesn't run to its optimum level. And when an injector doesn't run to its optimum level, what you see is it doesn't mix, it doesn't evaporate, it doesn't combust, which therefore means that you're actually, to get the same level of output on your equipment, you're actually having to burn more fuel. And the outcome of having to push more fuel through it is one, obviously your fuel cost goes up because there's more of it. Two, the big one today is obviously from a decarbonation perspective, you're actually burning more fuel, which means that you're putting more fuel into the atmosphere. And the third one, actually, you could get a power decrease on your equipment, and that the only way you overcome that is actually putting more fuel through it, which goes back to the first problem. If you flick to the next slide. So normally I'd show this in a video, but for the webinar today, so just talk through actually where FuelActive sits and what we look to do. So if you look in the first box, what you're seeing there is a standard kind of fuel tank, and the breakout of fuel within a fuel tank. And if you look at the bottom, what you kind of get on a mine, and even with really incredible fuel management processes, are large mines and customers around Africa and across the world. Obviously, you do struggle to remove all forms of contaminants, such as kind of dust, dirt, rust that you see on a mining industry. And then the next layer up, what you see is obviously water. And water can come in via weather, but the main way water comes in is via the temperature difference between inside the fuel tank and outside the fuel tank, creating condensation inside the tank. And however strong a fuel management process is on the mine, that is near impossible to remove. And then obviously on top, you have the cleanest fuel. And the reason, even during, and happy to send over this to anyone after the webinar, but even during the high levels of agitation that you get with mining, moving vehicles, it's still really interesting to see how that clear difference sits between those kind water and diesel due to the weight difference. In the second picture, what you're seeing is a standard fuel pipe that basically generally comes from the top of the tank and sits within a few centimeters of the bottom of the tank. With a standard fuel pickup pipe, what you have is it acts, because it's basically like a straw, acts like a straw, and it basically creates that pressure point around the bottom of it. By creating that pressure point around the bottom of it, actually sucks, which means it always sucks from the bottom of the tank and sucks the heaviest material into the fuel line, which means that even when you're looking at a a diesel tank which has predominantly 99% clean fuel in it, and only the bottom 1% has a level of water and contaminants in it, that's the first material you always suck up into your fuel line. If you look into the box 3 in comparison with FuelActive, what FuelActive is a floating pickup pipe. So FuelActive sits on the top of the available fuel within the tank. So even if FuelActive, even if the tank has got 5% full or 100% full, we're all sitting on the top of the available fuel, pulling the cleanest fuel into the tank. So if it's 5% fuel, we're still pulling that cleanest 1% of that 5% always into the tank. And then on number 4, what you're looking at there is in our innovation centre in the UK, we obviously have large fish bowl, and in the same fuel, you've got a fuel active unit and you've got a non-fuel active unit, and it's a bit of a kind of Pepsi challenge in the sense of what you're showing is what actually, if you had contaminated fuel in the tank, what would fuel active pull out and what would a non-fuel active unit pull out, and you can see there the difference in the quality as we spray the fuel against the glass between the two. And happy to show again to anyone that's interested to know more, happy to obviously show this from a video perspective or show it from an agitation perspective. It's very interesting. It shows the same. If you just flick to the next slide. So from a fuel active perspective, though as the units get bigger in the bigger mining vehicles, the actual basis of the fuel active technology is very simple. So you take those 4 kind of key components. So you've got the baffle tube that protects and guides the float. You've got the fuel float, which is broken up into 2 parts inside the float, which the bottom is the diesel reservoir, which prevents any form of fuel starvation. And the top part is the air pocket, which means it always floats, that always sits at equilibrium on top of the diesel available. And then you've got the hose, which means the float moves up and down. And then you've got the top plate that just connects into the fuel line, which means there's no need to cut any fuel line. It's just a straight connection. FuelActive is simple because it's got no maintenance. Once you fit FuelActive, it's a fit and forget. We provide a 5-year warranty on all installations of FuelActive. And we've got units that have been installed for 10 plus years in different mining vehicles across the world. As I said, very simple and robust, which makes it perfect for high industrial industries such as the mining industry and long operational life. And if you can see a few of the pictures, really FuelActive can be installed on anything from a kind of small 20 kV generator all the way up to where we've installed on multiple large kind of big haul trucks across the world. You just flick to the next slide. So if we take that back to a kind of from a decarbonisation perspective, like if anyone spent time looking at different mining decarbonisation strategies, and they generally, some of them more aggressive than others, but they generally fit into kind of the same remit of looking at kind of how piloting new zero vehicles, reducing carbon intensity, hitting scope emissions. What we see is FuelActive as a transitional technology, and in the sense of it's important to not only look at what is coming onto the market in the next 5 to 10 years, but what can we do now to reduce the diesel impact of our mobile and fixed equipment on a mine, and through reducing your carbon emissions, but also reducing your fuel the usage. You also get an environmental benefit from reducing your carbon footprint, but a very strong ROI from reducing the high cost of fuel at the moment as well. If you flick to the next slide. So I thought just to kind of to end my short presentation, I thought just to add a couple of case studies in, and I've picked 2 case studies, albeit they're not in Africa, because I thought they kind of these 2 summed up the market a bit stronger, in the sense of I picked one which is a very large, this one here, which is one of the largest copper mines on the planet, and then the next one that I'll just have a quick chat through is actually a very small gold mine, to just show that how we work with from both sides of the market. This one here was with we worked in partnership with Komatsu Cummins in Chile, and it was looking at the new Komatsu 930 truck, and Cummins fitting their new QSK 78 engine. And with these new engines, new stage engines, the actual quality of fuel that's going into the engines is vital. And with poor quality of fuel, what they found is obviously that you get downtime on the equipment. So we install FuelActive on these new units with the benefit, with the goal of obviously delivering cleaner fuel, which meant that increase the fuel filter lives, and also hopefully look at the actual also providing a fuel efficiency benefit. And if you flick to the next slide, what the outcome of the trial we found is that, and this is just a snapshot and on the ISO 40406 sample taken, and could have shown this for any day, but it was just one of the days we chose, and it was very similar every day. But is that they come in, I should ask for basically the fuel ISO standard of 18, 16, 13 into their equipment. And what the fuel that was sampled taken before it goes into before it goes through FuelActive was actually always out of scope. And if we looked at pretty much every day, it was very similar. Once FuelActive was installed, the actual fuel that's going into the fuel line pre the fuel filters was actually under scope. And what that did is two things. One, from a fuel efficiency perspective, Cummins expected to see about a 3% benefit. What we saw was a 9.6% benefit across their fuel efficiency, of which according from the Cummins statistics, they believe 6% of that was assigned to FuelActive delivering that cleaner fuel. But then also from a benefit from a copper mine of this size, the actual increase in fuel filter life. So we've obviously we went up to, so we tested at 1,200 hours for 3 months, and now we've stuck at 1,000 hours. So it's a big increase in fuel filter life, which means that obviously the trucks don't have to come in for fuel maintenance as regularly. If you flick to the next slide. And lastly, just a different case study from a different part of the world, a much smaller mine. This mine was looking to how can we, they were having issues with downtime on trucks because of injector failures. And when we spoke to them at the start, and we said, well, let's create a pilot where we test 3 Volvo A60s versus 3 Volvo A60s, one lot fitted with FuelActive, one not fitted with FuelActive, and see the results over a 6-month period. What we found that basically when FuelActive was installed, we had a 200% difference on low power instance, where we had 9, they had 27. We saw 0 injector failures over the period of the trial. They saw 2. And actually, even though they changed their injector twice, we still saw a 3.3% fuel benefit. This was enough from McMahon's perspective. We've now, FuelActive is installed on all of their diesel trucks and equipment across the mines, and we're now installing all their other equipment globally as we speak. If anyone's interested to find a bit more about it, there's an article about it in the International Mining Magazine. But yeah, thank you, Maya. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Shell, for inviting me to speak. Happy to answer any questions that come into the Q&A. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. Very insightful. To all our attendees, as you would have noticed, we're moving away from just being a product supplier with solutions that are in our portfolio, end-to-end solutions, where we work together with our customers to customize the solutions that's specific to their applications. And central to all solutions that we provide is sustainability and reduced carbon footprint. So we look to partner with customers, different sectors, mining, constructions, and power, to provide those end-to-end solutions that sort of takes away the pain of managing their oiling application. With that said, I think we will move to Q&A. Shannon, if you can look at the questions, if there are any in our Q&A.
Sure, thanks, Mpho. There is one question, and the question is, Can FuelActive work in diesel fuel, which contains 30% fatty acid methyl ester? Currently in Indonesia, following the government regulations to use 30% of that, FAME had already caused many problems in components of diesel engine, especially in the injector. Maybe, Thomas, you'd like to take that one?
Yeah, so the answer is yes. So we're working quite heavily with Shell at the same time in Indonesia. So we've worked a lot with B30 fuel, which contains that. We've got 3 current trials running in Indonesia with Trakindo, with McMahon, and we've got multiple rolls out. So yes, at the moment, what we found is that we are still saving the injector. The interesting thing that we see in Indonesia more than pretty much any other region is the face of diesel bug. And once diesel bug has got into the engine and has gone past the fuel line, actually that's already past the fuel tank. So if that's the situation that you're facing, what has to happen is it has to be all clean out of the fuel line. And then once you do that and FuelActive is installed, then again, yes, we'll protect you from that. But if diesel bug is already inside the engine, then it has to be a full clean out to remove that.
Thanks for that. There doesn't seem to be any other questions. Attendees, if you've got any other questions, you're welcome to put them in. In the meantime, Mpho, have you got any further statements to make?
Thanks, Shannon. Yes, I think, going back to my opening statement, we're largely looking to partner with customers to address some of the key pain points. As I said, the main challenges, the need to operate sustainably while maintaining profitability and performance. I think that is a key thing. When we introduce the products or solutions, the key thing is for us to maintain the performance or even improve on that. So as I said, as you saw with the product from our HDMO portfolio, the introduction of Shell Remula CK4, which is not only sustainable, but it's also carbon neutral. So we look at those opportunities to help customers achieve their sustainability goals. With that said, all information that's been presented here can be made available to all attendees. And if there are any further questions, maybe put them on the chat box, or maybe contact us directly, and then we'll be sure to get back to you.
Mpho, there is another question that's just come through, and it is based on circular economy. So with the circular economy being part of decarbonization, what is being done about recycling of lubes and oils?
It's Shell South Africa. We are part of the Rose Foundation, which is responsible for used oil in circulation. So we have systems in place to help customers recycle used oil. That's very key. I must also stress that's very key for us to make sure that all oil products that's in circulation are disposed of responsibly. So as part of the Rose Foundation, that is part of our mandate to ensure that all of the products in circulation are disposed of responsibly. We work hand in hand, particularly in mining, with our customers, either through local enterprises, to set up enterprises to help collect used oil and send to Rose Foundation for disposal.
Just to add to that, Mpho, in terms of a global thing that Shell Lubricants are working on, we're looking to see what we can do in terms of re-refining used oils. So there's a huge project going on. It's currently in the States, where, like I say, we're essentially looking to see what can we do with used oil. Obviously, not for every. It won't be available for every application, but for certainly some of our heavier products, we know that we can do some work where it will help reduce our sustainability and our carbon footprint. So there's quite a lot of work going on in the background. probably a lot of it is not customer facing at the moment, but it's certainly we're looking to do something in that space, you know, in the short term.
Great, thanks. On that note, Jamie, there is a question that's come through for you, and it says, just to confirm that your OilCon solution measures multiple operational conditions, but still rely on physical oil sampling and analysis to determine the wear metal content, or can you measure this in situ as part of your solution?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one we get answered. One we get asked quite a lot. So in its current format, Shell Remote Sense is not designed to replace oil sampling. It's actually designed to reduce oil sampling. So if an example, on a typical oil drain, we would probably see 6 or 7 oil samples. We can probably get that down to 1 or 2. And then in terms of the actual question specifically around wear metals, we can't give a figure. So in its current format, Shell Remote Sense won't say to a customer, hey guys, you've got 50 ppms of copper or 200 ppms of lead. It will indicate that there's a wear metal problem, and we recommend that the customer takes a sample. But as I was talking about during my presentation, where we're working today is to see how we can achieve that. So how can we tell customers not only that they've got a wear metal issue, but that it's copper, and can we give it a ppm value? So in its current format, no, we would still need that oil sample to confirm, but our models and our algorithms can very accurately detect that there are issues, there are contaminants. So in its current format, no. But I'm hoping in the short to mid term that we would have a solution in place that can answer those kind of specific questions and give our customers specific answers.
Thanks, Jamie. There's one now for Thomas, also from a Thomas. He says, you quoted about a 3% improvement in CO2. How was that quantified? Was that a direct relation to fuel consumption improvement?
Yeah, the answer is yes. So we take basically, it's 2.62 is every litre of diesel burnt is basically the equivalent of that within CO2. So that's the direct correlation that we follow.
A final question that's come through the chat, and then we'll move back to the Q&A. Probably this one's for you, Mpho. Are you only interested in working with big companies or startups as well?
We work with everyone. So as Shell Lubricants South Africa, you know, we've got 2 channels, as you know, for our route to market. We've got the direct channel, and we have the indirect channel. You know, within our indirect channel, that's where we work mostly with small to medium distributors. So we look at working with everyone. If we can work directly, then we work through a distributor.
Thanks, Mpho. There's another question on the Shell remote sensor. Somebody wants to know, can it be used in the marine industry?
Yeah, we're heavily involved in the marine sector. We've actually partnered. We have a slightly separate venture for Shell Remote Sense, where we've partnered with a company called Baker Hughes, who do a lot of services within the marine sector. Essentially, what we've done is we've partnered to use their hardware, and we use the Shell Remote Sense platform or the front end. So yeah, marine is a huge customer for Shell Remote Sense, and as Mpho says, we can either work directly with our service providers, or we can work indirectly with a separate company. But yeah, marine is heavy fuel oil engines are definitely a good fit for Shell Remote Sense, because we know a lot of customers in the marine sector are sweetening or topping up with a lot of oil, and they have to do that in a fairly crude format. So we know that the sensor can really help in the marine sector. The other good fit for Shell Remote Sense in marine, obviously, is it's a huge problem if things break down. We don't want ships breaking down in the middle of the ocean, so we know that it's a good fit for marine, and also they have a lot of different applications. So it's not only the marine or the ship's engines that need monitoring. There's a lot of auxiliary equipment, gearboxes, compressors, things like that. So yeah, marine, we're heavily involved in the marine sector.
Right, I think that seems to be all that's come through the Q&A. Does anybody like to say anything else before we close off? All good. All right, I'm going to just do a little thank you to everyone. We have reached the end of our webinar. So I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you to our facilitator, Mpho Mokwena, for enabling an engaging discussion on the topic of lubrication and fuel efficiency for a cleaner environment. Thank you also to our panelists, Thomas Michaelson-Yeates from FuelActive and Jamie Clare from Shell Lubricants. Finally, thank you to the attendees for taking the time to join us for this discussion. We hope you found it informative. If you've got any further questions, please send us an email. You can contact us at shannon@creamermedia.co.za. The recording of today's webinar will be sent to you in due course, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much for your time, and goodbye.